So in this video, we're going to be looking at how to properly hook up and disconnect your gauges, as well as calculating superheat and subcooling for an HVAC air conditioning unit. First off, a good rule of thumb is to always purge your gauges. I did that beforehand, but we can show you how right now. So first off, you loosen up both sides, as so. Undo the yellow just a little bit until you hear the hissing. Once the hissing stops and these gauges are down to 0, that means your thing is good. You tighten this back up and you're ready to hook up your gauges. Now we'll start by hooking up the blue and the red to their respective sides. Red side for the liquid line, blue side for the suction line. Try to do it quick so you're not spitting refrigerant everywhere. Okay. Now traditionally you would let this run for a little bit, about 5 to 10 minutes, in order to take an accurate superheat and subcooling, but for the purpose of this video we'll do it right now. So we can see on our gauges that we have a pretty decent pressure of about 50, I want to say 52 on our low side, and about 150, no, probably 180 on our high side. We will begin by calculating superheat. In order to calculate superheat, you're going to get your nifty PT chart. This machine takes R22, so we're going to focus on R22. And since we're doing superheat, we're going to focus on the low side, or your blue gauge right here. And that's telling us 52. So you go and find 52 on your PT chart on their PSIG. And that should be the temperature matching up with it. Now, we're going to use this device and put it on our suction line and tell us what the actual temperature of the line is. Give it about a minute in order for it to actually go down to temp. Okay, so you can take a rough estimation when it starts equaling out. So we're going to say 30.4. Now you take a look at your PT chart, because you're still at 52, and you're going to take the 30.4 and minus it by the actual. So 34.4 minus 27.6 is roughly going to be 2.8 or 2.4, somewhere in that ballpark. And that would be your subcooling. Now to take a look at, oh, my apologies. That would be superheat. Now to take a look at subcooling, we're going to focus on the liquid line. So, we're going to do the same process, just for the liquid line now. I'll set that up so that we can take that temp. Now we're going to take a look at the high side pressure, which is roughly 175. And now we find 175 on our PT chart. Right here, that temp should be 92.5, and on our device it's saying about 77.3. So if we do our calculations, 92.5 minus 77.3 is going to be roughly 18 degrees of subcooling. And that's basically how you would do superheat and subcooling. Now, since we're done with the main aspect, we're going to focus now on disengaging our gauges from the unit. Alright, in order to disconnect the gauges, first off, we're going to disconnect the red line. Now we're going to open up on the blue. And we're going to do a process that we call metering in, which we're gradually going to open up on the red so that it sucks pressure out of the gauges and back into the machine. We do this in order to maximize how much gets back into the machine and minimize how much stays in the hose that we have to purge later. Okay, once you see that the gauges aren't fluttering anymore and they're pretty much stable, that means that's the lowest pressure you can get. So you can close up on the red. And now take your blue line off. Put that back on. Now we're going to purge our hose. So we can either do it individually or all together. All together would be you open up both hoses and purge in the yellow, or you can do individually by opening up just one and then purging that line, which I'll do right now. That's the blue. Close that back up. You're going to have it bounce back a little bit. Don't worry. Alright, now if there's anything left, we can just open up both sides and get that last bit out. Okay. And now your gauges are purged. And you're good to go. So in this video, we'll be looking how to hook up and disengage our gauges from an AC valve type system, as well as taking the superheat and the subcooling of said system. So as we can see in these gauges, it's clearly not purged, so that's what we're gonna have to do first. I'm going to open up on both sides, crack the yellow, so there's nothing in the gauge. Might have to do it again just to make sure everything's out. Make sure you close them both back up. Now we're going to take a look down here. We're going to make our connections right at these two valves. The bigger line is going to be your suction line, And the smaller line here is going to be the liquid. So blue and red. Now these black caps here, you're going to take these off to reveal the screw heads of the valve. These are what we call king valves, and we're going to be using a special wrench seen here. It's known as the service wrench. We're actually going to be focusing on the 1/4 side in order to open these up.
Why are we opening them?
We're opening them because right now the gauges are currently isolated from the system because the valves are currently closed. So we need to open them in order to get the gauge a part of the system. Here's a little trick. If it doesn't open the one way, you hit this little device on the wrench to change which way it ratchets. Alright. You don't have to do it a lot, just 1/4 turn should open it up and you should start seeing a pressure reading. Now we're going to do it for the low side. Okay, and now we will start with calculating superheat. So we're going to use this device, stick it right on our suction line. Give it a minute or two to let it drop. And when it starts to equal out, that will be your line temp. Alright, it equaled out at 43.1. So we're going to go back to our PT chart for the refrigerant we're using, which is 134A. And based upon our temp of 42.6 now, and our pressure of 32, we're going to find 32 in here, corresponding temperature of 36.8, and we currently have a line temp of 42.6, so that is a superheat of 6.2. Now we're going to do the same thing, but for subcooling. So we're going to use this device again and stick it on our liquid line. Give it a minute to equal out. So you can see we have a gauge reading of 55, and I'll match it up with your PT chart. So at a pressure of 55, 155, we should have a corresponding temperature of 113.6. We're reading 105.6, so we have a subcooling of about 8.3. And now, since we're done with superheat and subcooling, we are now getting ready to disengage the gauges from the unit. So the first thing you're going to do is take your service wrench flip it. So now it will tighten. Close up on your high pressure or liquid side. From there, you're going to open up on the blue, and now you're going to meter your liquid side through the blue side back into the machine. Now do this very carefully, because you'll clearly hear the liquid start pouring back into your compressor, and that's a no bueno. So just do it carefully. All right, now that the pressures are evened out, I'm going to take my service wrench, close up on the low side, disengage my hoses, open up both valves, crack the yellow, okay. Now I'm going to put everything back where I found it. You're good to go.